Section R. The commodity is intelligent. Official account. Meet 2026. Mathematics of the social sciences. How many days does a person work in his life? Intelligence gift to mankind. This great work in 2013, with mathematics as a bridge, combines the boundaries of social sciences and natural sciences. It not only explains the laws of the material world, but also reaches the hearts of the people. It tells us that the spirit is a system that needs to be integrated. If the mind is built on changing matter, it is destined to sway. This is the root of anxiety and confusion, but the truth remains unchanged. It shouldn't be hung in the air, but reach into everyone's heart. When truth becomes consensus, society will have the mechanism to support the dignity and confidence of every soul. We will eventually get out of hesitation and be peaceful and determined. The first chapter, the objective environment for innovation. Section 2, commodities are energy controlled by intelligence. Traditional economic theory defines commodities in a very complicated manner, which is redundant. The complexity and length mean that different people have different understandings. This also makes the starting point of the logic controversial. So what kind of definition is objective and accurate? Commodity production, transportation, and delivery are composed of countless microunits. The process is complex, but if we look for the commonalities among the three, we can find that humans and livestock, water power, wind power, fossil energy, and machines in the production and transportation processes have cross-elimination relationships. Humans and intelligent machines and the internet have cross-elimination relationships among the three links. Therefore, humans and machines, in the process of production, transportation, and delivery, have no difference in energy output, and the processing of goods, in terms of process, are also no different. The former can be summarized as no different energy, and the latter as no different intelligent control. Therefore, we can come to the conclusion that commodity is energy controlled by intelligence, a simple and uncontroversial conclusion. See Table 113. The biggest benefit of this conclusion is that it is simple, quantifiable, and measurable. This eliminates disputes and thinking. Through this simple concept, we can clearly see the direction of innovation. First, continuously reduce the proportion of human effort in commodities until it reaches zero. Second, continuously increase the proportion of intelligent control until it reaches 100%. People like to get something for nothing. You like to lead, command, plan, and think. Only by turning the market into a measurable scientific market can we more easily find solutions to problems. The starting point of a measurable market should be built on the basis of indiscriminate perception of commodities. The sufficient condition for entering industrial society is that, in the inherent impression, the main cost of commodities is production cost. Western Europe, which started with low Schreide yuan costs, was also roughly like this. But if we go back to the mainland and agricultural society, we will find that the main cost of commodities was not production cost, but transportation cost. The energy people consumed was the fundamental reason why the price of silk exceeded that of gold in the Roman Empire. We can also go deep into the microfield to quantify this problem. Long-distance transportation in ancient continental countries mainly relied on human or livestock. The cost of livestock feeding was high, as most of the dirt roads were muddy and uneven. Wooden vehicles were not suitable for long-distance transportation, especially for transporting goods to remote areas. Once the vehicles broke down, it would cause huge losses. Compared to expensive livestock and damaged vehicles, human-powered transportation was cheaper. To better illustrate the cost gap, let's look at a historical record. Shen Kuo, a mathematician and military officer of the Song dynasty, recorded in Mengxi Baitan that transporting provisions to feed the army is the most urgent task. Transporting provisions incurs heavy costs and is difficult. I have calculated that one person can carry 6 dough of rice, which is enough for him to eat for 5 days, when supplied to soldiers. The trip takes 18 days. The soldiers consume 2 dough of rice per day, so 2 soldiers can finish the 6 dough of rice in 18 days. If we factor in the return trip, it's 1 soldier per 2 people. The round trip will take 26 days. The total amount of rice needed is 6 dough per 3 soldiers per 10 days, which is enough for 1 soldier for 8 days. So we should give him 6 days of rations and let him go. In the next 18 days, 2 soldiers can consume 13 dough of rations in 10 days. For the first 8 days, we have 16 dough for the trip. For the next 5 days, we need to feed 1 soldier for 31 days. We have 18 dough left, which can feed 4 soldiers for 10 days and 1 soldier for 4 days. On the 17th, 3 soldiers consume 6 dough of rations in 10 days, so we can release 1 soldier. Then we give him 9 dough of rations. For the next 8 days, for 2 soldiers, the remaining 4 dough can last for 16 days. For the first 6 days, we need 17 dough per day. For the next 7 days, 14 dough per day. For 3 soldiers in total, so 100,000 soldiers requires 30,000 animals, which means only 70,000 soldiers are available for battle. It's hard to do anything else. Pregnant women can go back home. That'll reduce the number of deaths and diseases. The food saved can be taken by them as provisions. Dividing the total food by 6, we get the number of soldiers. Those who go to war may suffer from diseases and casualties, so the burden on each person was more than 6 dough. That's why soldiers are not allowed to grow food. If one person grows food, it can only feed 2 or 3 people, and sometimes it's not enough. If we send food from home to the soldiers, a camel can carry 3 she of food, and a malo or horse, 15 dough. For human carriers, they carry less, but use more. If soldiers focus on growing food, they will face death. If they do other things, they will have both pros and cons. Translation: when marching, the military moves not only incurs high costs, but also has difficulty transporting food over long distances. I once calculated that each person carrying 6 dough of rice for 5-day rations could last 18 days for a soldier. At 6 liters per person per day, it could feed 2 people for 18 days. If calculated based on round trips, it's only enough for 9 days' journey. The provisions for 2 soldiers can last for 26 days. 1 she and 2 dough of rice can feed 3 people for 8 days. If we give him enough food for 6 days, for the remaining 18 days, 2 people eat 4 liters of dry rations per day, which is only enough for 13 days round trip. For the first 8 days, they eat 6 liters per day, and for the last day, they eat 4 liters of dry rations, plus the return trip, which can last for 31 days. 8 dough of rice can feed 4 soldiers for 6.5 days, with 1 helper giving 4 days' worth of rations to another helper who has 9 days' worth of rations. In the next 18 days, 2 soldiers eat 4 liters per day for 6.5 days, 6 liters per day for 7 days, and 4 liters per day for the return trip. The maximum is 1 liter per person. If there are 100,000 recruiters here, 1/3 of them are quartermasters, leaving only 700,000 recruits for combat. It's difficult to send more soldiers because we need soldiers to escort the porters who will die on the way. The saved rations will be consumed by the escort soldiers. The grain transportation system is 6 dough per person per day, according to statistics. The captain doesn't carry anything. Those who carry firewood and water carry half of it, and the weight of illness and death is shared by all. So, people carry more than 6 dough each. That's why we don't carry extra food. 1 more mouth to feed means 2 more people to support, and that's not enough. If we use animals to carry food, camels can carry food for 3 generations, horses and mules for 15 dough, compared with transporting food like ants. Although they carried a lot, if they didn't feed on time, the animals would die. If an animal died, the food it carried would be discarded. Compared with carrying it on the back, it has both advantages and disadvantages. That, in this case, manpower cost is not considered. Even so, it takes 300,000 transport soldiers to support 70,000 soldiers. On the contrary, if land is sufficient and free, 50,000 people can farm to support 70,000 soldiers is not difficult. This means that, with pure land transportation, the cost of long-distance land transportation is at least 50 times of production cost. Considering that there may be water transportation in the market, we estimate that the transportation cost is 10 to 20 times of the production cost. Another reason for the conclusion is that, in the battles mixed with waterways and land routes, Sun Tzu came to the conclusion that if you can outnumber the enemy by 5 to 1, you can win the battle. He commanded wars in the middle and lower reaches of the Yangtze River and the Huayu River Basin, where water transportation was developed. Thus, they transported grain by both water and land. In this context, transportation costs remain 10 to 20 times higher than production costs. The above 2 cases basically prove our initial conclusion that transportation cost accounted for 10 to 20 times of the production cost. Thus, low value-added goods rarely travel more than 5 kilometers naturally within a village or two. Even if local products are of inferior quality, they can still thrive due to high transportation costs, which prevent foreign goods from entering. Only high-end luxury goods, such as gems, silk, tea, and spices, can thrive despite high transportation costs. These are low value-added goods with limited demands and no need for high efficiency. The other is high value-added goods, like luxury goods, which also has low demand for efficiency. In a savings market, the focus of research is on the process of market thinning, because it was closely related to the noble life. Weber wrote in the book The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism that as foreign trade declined, the market thinned out. In the East, transportation costs remained high before the founding of the People's Republic of China. Take the Weihai Campaign, one of the three major campaigns. For example, the 600,000 soldiers in the PLA's participating forces were outnumbered by 5.43 million civilian workers transporting supplies, a ninefold increase. Three historical cases from ancient times, the Spring and Autumn period, the Northern Song Dynasty, and the Republic of China, illustrate that, in regions where land transportation plays a major role, the conditions for a large market are not met. Assuming that the cost of ancient commodities is 100 yuan, the ratio of transportation cost to production cost is approximately 80 yuan to 20 yuan. If the 8 yuan cannot be solved, transporting the 2 yuan produced locally to other places will result in 10 yuan. It is impossible to compete with the 2 yuan from other places. Local consumers have no reason to choose the imported stone over the local cheap one. As a result, the local market lacks the need to improve efficiency, which is the root cause of self-locking and innovation. Only when transportation costs are significantly reduced to 0.2 or even 0.1 will local low-end have a chance to compete with high-end products from other cities. This will allow them to continuously generate external savings and activate the valve of local efficiency improvement. As a result, the ratio will gradually decrease to 1.9, 1.8, and 1.7. Eventually, local products will have a cost advantage over those from other cities, while high transportation costs keep the market tightly sealed, which in turn is equal to the number of product types multiplied by the trading frequency multiplied by the number of effective consumers. In a small market, the three variables are all fixed. Logistics and information flow are in sync. Logistics is limited in scope, so is information flow, and so is technology, which is therefore synchronized. Therefore, the order to solve market problems is irreversible. No nation can skip transportation and go directly to production. Reducing transportation costs is the prerequisite for industrial innovation. Land contraction allowed Song to lower production costs and usher in the age of discovery. Both countries solved transportation problems via efficient waterways, which is a necessary condition for innovation, but not a sufficient one. The power of humans, animals, tools, water, and wind are essentially the same and can replace each other. If local human resources are more abundant than other places, local efficiency can only be improved so much, which can be easily met by manpower. If transportation cost is 0 and demand in other cities is 100, local human supply is 1,000, then the relevancy of other cities' demand for local efficiency is only 0.1. It can be easily solved by hard working, so no need to improve efficiency. Only when local supply falls behind demand, which falls to 1,000 tons, while local supply to 100 tons, overtime won't solve the problem. Labor shortage is severe, so efficiency needs to be improved. As efficiency improves, at a certain point, structural innovation will happen. This happened in Song, Yuan, and Ming dynasties. There was absolute surplus labor, limited external demand, and a typical result of few driving many. After the age of discovery, the UK before the Industrial Revolution was the latter. It was a typical case of many driving few. Therefore, the Industrial Revolution in the UK was not accidental. After solving the transportation problem, a great demand for travel was created. The huge external demand, compared to the limited labor supply in the UK, forced the British market to adopt livestock, tools, water power, coal, and machines to replace human labor. This brought about a structural change in the energy content of commodities. The proportion of human energy contribution started to change from 9 to 1 to 1 to 9. Objective changes are caused by subjective changes, technological and institutional factors, rather than resulting from them. When the Industrial Revolution took place, those who came later often looked for the reasons for innovation from a subjective perspective. This is why there are so many conflicting theories. It can also be said that the latecomers ignore the objective factors in their eagerness, strip away all the conceptual disguise, reduce commodities to energy controlled by intelligence, and then we can more easily restore the objective mathematical truth. Objective changes come first, and subjective adjustments come after. As a self-reinforcing energy, only in a monopolistic environment can an explosive release effect be produced. In the eastern region, where there is a scarcity of iron ore, the rich ore region cannot solve the transportation problem to the mainland. Only the UK has met both conditions. Western classics reverse the starting point of logic, and though their logic is rigorous, people cannot see the innovation trajectory clearly, or in what direction. Under such circumstances, people have different understanding. That gives rise to endless arguments. When debates replace science as the leading force in social science, social development will be hidden, to some extent. It's helpful for leaders. Therefore, objectively or subjectively, Western economists had no incentive to adjust their theories. This also applies to any once leading country or company. Second, innovation is to reduce the amount of human effort put into commodities. Water transportation replaced human power with water power, thus becoming the main contributor to transportation costs. Transportation costs dropped to less than 10% of the cost of commodities, with production cost becoming the main component. Innovation has taken root in manufacturing. Specialization and collaboration reduce the unnecessary movement of laborers and eliminate a lot of unnecessary expenditure of human energy, thus improving efficiency. Standardization and specialization also help reduce unnecessary physical exertion, thus reducing labor costs. The advent of steamboats made water transportation more efficient. Canals and trains made land transportation more efficient. The high efficiency of trains led to a sharp decline in transportation costs on key routes. The focus of the contradiction then shifted to the production workshop. On the basis of standardization and specialization, the application of assembly lines has shortened the distance we moved and the energy we spent on carrying things. Thus, the energy provided by machines has increased by leaps and bounds. The energy expended by humans continues to decrease significantly. And the car, as a byproduct of the assembly line, gradually transformed land transportation from freedom of lines to freedom of surfaces. Transportation was basically unlocked. The energy expended on transportation by humans has become negligible. The sharp decline in logistics costs also led to a multiplied increase in information flow, measured by human effort. We can clearly see division of labor, collaboration, specialization, and standardization. Steam engines, assembly lines, ships, trains, and cars are all means to reduce human energy expenditure. As long as there is a demand that cannot be met, and labor remains scarce, there is no magic here, but under market selection, it is a natural result. More than 2,000 years ago, as the initial experience in labor, the Qin people standardized production in weaponry, agriculture, and terracotta warriors, also due to supply shortage. After assembly lines became widespread in factories, the proportion of human energy contributed in goods has decreased structurally. If we calculate the proportion of human energy contribution in agricultural products as 100%, then after the assembly line was introduced and gradually became automated, the proportion of human contribution in goods has dropped to less than 1%. For example, it now takes just 16 man-hours to produce a car, but thousands of man-hours are needed to buy one. This structural problem has changed from relative oversupply to absolute oversupply. Forced by this, employment has shifted further into the information field. White-collar workers have replaced industrial workers as the dominant social class.
By controlling information and channels, white-collar workers artificially add value to commodities. The extent of this added value depends more on marketing and packaging capabilities. In the market dominated by white-collar workers, the production and transportation costs of commodities account for only about 30% of the total cost, and could be even lower. The remaining 70% is information cost, which is an unnecessary and variable cost. It plays a good role in correcting the balance of supply and demand in a specific period. The mechanization brought about the transportation revolution and the first industrial revolution, and employment shifted from agriculture to industry. The industrial workers became the leading class. The assembly line and automation brought about the second industrial revolution. Employment can migrate to the information field, forming the white-collar class. Without the internet, this structure could lead to a good match between supply and demand, peaceful coexistence. However, the advent of the internet and intelligence has completely disrupted the old balance. Compared to the low-cost, interactive, and timely internet, white-collar workers are undoubtedly high-cost. The intelligence based on the internet can completely replace industrial workers. This poses a new challenge for humans. We may either complete a new industrial migration or face a severe employment crisis worldwide. This could trigger geopolitical conflicts and lead to inevitable wars. Clearly, the latter is what no one wants to see. The former, however, will bring results beyond everyone's expectation. Looking back on the last two large-scale employment migrations, we can see that the transformation of farmers into workers has helped humanity eliminate widespread famine. In this process, we have entered a moderately prosperous society, with a living wage plus statutory holidays, exceeding the expectations of the landlords. The transformation of workers into white-collar workers has led humanity into a modern welfare society, which is beyond the expectation of industrial workers. What will the form of the third employment migration be? The basic requirements are as follows. 1. The welfare enjoyed at the bottom of society exceeds the working time. 4. The degree of democratic freedom far exceeds the American